Hey, David, thank you for coming on. And you're up there for Philadelphia for, um, well, is it a rubber match or whatever? That series is probably one of the. I enjoy watching that series.
It's been great. It's been great. I was at game two in New York, game four in Philly, and now game six in Philly. It's been a terrific series. Both teams have had moments where they've played exceptionally well and also moments where they've really struggled to score. And it could go, I mean, I still think New York's going to win the series just because Brunson has figured it out. The first two games, they kept him under wraps, but the last three games he's been unguardable. They haven't found anybody really that can guard him. They've tried some different things. They tried going zone and doing some different stuff, and it hasn't really slowed him down. And the Knicks have gotten so many people, whether it was Josh Hart and DiVincenzo early in the series. The last few games, it's been more Ananobi and Deuce McBride and people like that. So they're finding guys throughout their rotation that are scoring. So it's I don't know that Philly can stop them all. That maybe probably by the time people listen to this, maybe Phillies come back and win the series, and I sound like an idiot. But right now, going into Game Six, I just have a feeling the Knicks will figure out a way to win one of these two games.
Well, that's going to be interesting. Jalen Brunson is incredible. I'm going to tell you a funny story about him, David. And maybe you can write about this. Well, when I was working for the NBA, we had the 100 best high school players in the country would meet at the University of Virginia. And for some reason, Jalen was always late in the morning,
Yeah,
always late for getting there. So Purvis Short and other guys said, Kermit, go get him, and which was about 400 yards away. They used to have to walk over to the university's basketball field. And they
right.
said, well, tell him to pack his bags. He's going home.
Wow.
So I said, I don't want to do that. They said, Kermit, go tell him that he's late every day. We're going to take him home. But I knew they weren't going to send him home. So I go over there and Jalen is sound asleep. I wake him up. I said, because he might have been living on the West Coast. So getting up at 7 o'clock was like 4 o'clock. I don't know what it was. I said, Jalen, you got to get up. They're gonna send you home. Tears poured out of his eyes. He was crying and crying.
Mm.
Well, I said, it's not up to me. I'm not running the camp. They said, pack all your bags. So I had to sit there and wait for him to pack all of his suitcases and everything.
Oh my God.
And he had to
Wow.
walk like 400 yards with the suitcases. He's crying. And when he got there, I knew they weren't going to send him home, but they just wanted to show him that he had to be on time. And
Yeah.
and listen, that young man could play. He could
Yeah.
play then, but
Hmm.
they just wanted to show him because you had the top 100 players, and he went on to college, Villanova. Was he the MVP, David? In
Ah,
the
I can't remember. He was obviously a very good player on that team,
Yeah.
and when they won
But
the
right now,
championship.
it's just incredible what he's doing with as a Nick. I
Yeah,
mean,
no, he is so good, and he never get like all the great players. Kermit, you know this. The great players don't get sped up. They play at their pace. They do what they want to do. They make you react to them rather than the other way around. Um, and so he gets to his spots on the floor. He knows where he's going. Um, Everybody knows he wants to go. He'd rather go right than left, but he gets to his right anyway. It doesn't matter. Like he's just so crafty and smart with the ball, and can finish over size, can finish over length, can get to the cup. He's just a superstar player, and the Knicks getting him has really kind of completely reimagined their franchise because when you have a superstar, other superstars tend to want to play with superstars. So they're going to be in a position, I think, to add another great player, whether it's through a trade at the free agency this summer, and then really take a big step, I think, to be able to challenge maybe Boston and some of the other. I mean, they finished second, so it's not like they're that far away. But if they added another superstar this summer, they could challenge Boston, I think, next year.
okay, tell me this: what do you think they need to go over the top for that team right now?
I mean, I think their issue to me is that they don't have consistent shooting. I mean, Josh Hart really struggled to shoot the ball this year. Until the series, he's
Yeah.
shooting the ball lights out this series. But but he has struggled to shoot the ball, and they play him a lot, and rightly so. He's been one of their best players, outstanding offensive rebounder from the guard position. DiVincenzo's a very streaky shooter. Anunoby's a good shooter, but I wouldn't say a you know deadly shooter. So to me, they obviously defend at a very, very high level. So I don't think that's the issue. I think to me the issue is adding another perimeter guy, whether it's a guard or a wing, doesn't really matter to me, that can really shoot the ball and really create more space, not only for Brunson, but for some of their other players that like to put their head down and get to the basket.
Okay, what do you think about their center position?
I mean, you can always look at it and say they could, that could they improve it in some way? I mean, they could in terms of maybe just raw talent in terms of the scoring and things like that. But really, what Mitchell Robinson and Isaiah Hartenstein have given them has been terrific for the way they play. Those guys are both excellent post defenders. They're both Robinson's a really, really good shot blocker. Hartenstein's been, the advanced metrics like DPO, DPM that some people look at. He's been in the top 15 or 20 most of the season. I mean, he's been an outstanding defensive player. So the way Tom Thibodeau wants to play, I don't know that they could really do better in terms of how they want to play than the guys that they have right now. Now, Hardenstein's a free agent. He could get a lot of money this summer. My guess is though he's going to probably stay. Uh, I think they're in pretty good shape actually at that position.
Yeah, he does a good job. I like his little quick shot. He's like this
Yeah,
little
little push, little
yeah, little push shot. He
push shot. These guys, yeah, he's gotten good at it.
Well, you know what? They play their roles. All the guys play their
Right.
roles, and that's why they're pretty successful. What do you think of their bench?
It's not bad. I mean, it's not bad. McBride's been really good in this series. I think that in a perfect world, would you want to have one more long guy? I mean, they got Achua in the deal that got Ananobi from Toronto. Achua was in that deal too. So Precious Achua has helped them somewhat as a kind of extra body, extra big. But you have to remember also they're playing a man short. I mean, Julius Randle's out for the season. So if he's in the lineup, everybody moves down one. Josh Hart probably comes in off the bench. They went small after Randle got hurt. So Josh Hart will be coming off the bench with Hartenstein because Robinson has been hurt most of the season. That's why Hartenstein was starting. If Robinson's healthy, then Hartenstein's coming off the bench. So now all of a sudden you got a pretty deep bench. So I
Mhm.
think their bench is fine when they're healthy. But like everybody else, any other team, when you start losing guys, that's when your bench gets a little shorter.
Okay. I want to change the subject in a minute because a lot of stuff's been going on about Kalen Clark. And I look at it like this.
Mhm.
Kalen Clark reminds me a lot, for me, of like Tiger Woods. I never watched golf in my life,
Mhm.
but because of the exposure and because of her excellence at University of Iowa, I enjoy the final games of the women's more than the final games of the NCAA men's tournament.
Mhm.
And the jealousy and the envy I'm hearing, I want to say to them, Tiger Woods put so much money in the rest of the golfers' pockets.
That's
That's the
right.
same thing as Clark is going to do for them. I think they need to understand that. What is your take on that, David?
I mean, look, I think Caitlin Clark is a phenomenal talent. She certainly moves the needle. I mean, she gets casual, and I say casual, I just mean people don't watch women's basketball that much. Casual viewers tune in to watch her play. Um, she wins, her teams win. She went to two straight Final Fours and championship game this year. Um, the people watch it on TV, the numbers are through the roof. I'm not saying it's just her. I'm saying she's the biggest star in a constellation of stars, right? I mean, you've also got Angel Reese, and you've also got Juju from USC, and you've also got South Carolina and Cardoza going undefeated, and Dawn Staley's a big star, right? So there's a lot of stars that helped this year, but I mean to ignore Caitlin Clark's impact as the biggest star of all those stars, I think is being naive. Now you can debate the reasons, right, for her being the biggest star, but you can't debate that she is the biggest star. And
Yes,
so,
yes, I agree.
yeah, so it's reality says that, to your point, just like with Tiger, he lifted up the game. More people watched when Tiger played. Just point blank, they did. And he got purses increased a dramatic amount. And I think you'll see when the WNBA's media rights contract and its collective bargaining agreement come up in the next couple of years, you'll see an enormous bump up, both in the amount of money they get from the TV networks to broadcast their games and the salaries that the players will get, because now you're seeing, I live in DC, and we already saw, the Mystics play at an arena in Southeast DC that seats about 4,200. It's a nice arena. But now, all of a sudden, the first day the schedule came out, they said, we're changing that Indiana Fever game. We're now playing it at Capital One downtown that seats
Right.
20,000.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
were
you
talking
know,
about that earlier.
we were talking about that earlier because
yeah,
I'm going to go to the game. I have never been to a WNBA game, but when they
yeah,
come to Vegas, I'm for sure I'm going.
of
And
course,
because
everybody's going. Yeah,
yeah, you want to see, and because I was telling T.O. today, they've only played 40 games, I think, in the season.
Yeah.
20
yeah.
are away, and I guarantee you, going to be 20 sellouts on those
20
away
cells.
games
Yes,
for sure.
absolutely. All of them. Yes,
And
for
it's one of those, a rising tide floats all boats things. If you look at it, when Yao Ming, for example, remember when Yao Ming came in, of course, he brought this whole Chinese audience,
Right.
and with that, I mean, he was the number one jersey seller, and then but they got all those eyeballs were on Tracy McGrady, and then he was the number one guy for years
Right.
in the jersey
Yeah.
sales, and it was just because that was the conduit.
Yeah, I think the ladies will wake up to the situation that that another thing, the coach, we were talking about that this morning, David. The
Hmm.
coach and the commissioner needs to realize that you've got to showcase her. You got to give her the opportunity. And the good thing about her game is that she can shoot from such a long distance. It's
Right.
not going to be easy to double her. And now
Right.
the lady Reese, that's from LSU, is that her? Is
Yeah.
that what she plays?
Yeah.
Well, she's an
Hmm.
okay player, but she's not one that you want to really run to go see play. I'd rather see the girl at Juju. Yeah, I like her at SC because she
Yeah.
handles the
She's
ball.
exciting. Sure. Sure.
Yeah, she's very
Yeah.
exciting. And the girl from
Yeah.
Connecticut. What's her name?
Yes. Beckers. Paige
Yeah,
Beckers.
yes,
Yes.
I like her. Her attitude, I mean, she's just in something else. So I think, as I said, it's going to grow. I'll be at the game. And I think a
Yeah.
lot of people think just like I do. We want to see her play.
Well, I think, look, she's going to play. I mean, obviously she's going to play. And I think it's a good situation with the Fever. They drafted Aaliyah Boston last year, who's an outstanding low post player. So so Caitlin Clark with her game is a perfect complement to Aaliyah Boston to me, because people neglect this, but Caitlin Clark, was is great passing the ball. She's a great passer. And if she's throwing the ball inside to a great finisher like Aaliyah Boston, that only is going to open things up. And her ability to stretch the floor and stretch defenses because she can shoot it is going to make life so much easier for Aaliyah Boston. So it's going to be, I think, a great 1-2 punch for Indiana. Um, and I think they've got some very good complementary players, but as well. But those two are going to certainly raise the stakes for the Fever going forward. But you're right, the whole league is going to benefit from her
That's good. Now,
playing and playing
now
early.
here's my next question.
Yep.
How about the Wizards? Oh my God. How about your Washington Wizards?
Well, I mean, look, I, I give them credit for this. They finally ripped the band-aid off instead of trying to kind of sneak into the 10th spot in the East and get in the play-in round and win 36 games every year as if that was some major accomplishment. They have finally, and I start when I say they, I mean Ted Leonsis, the owner, has finally said, okay, we're going to do this the way every other team in the NBA has had to do it over the last 50 years, which is we got to get as bad as possible so that we can get as high a number of draft picks as we can get and take as many cracks at the top of the lottery as we can get until we hopefully hit a superstar. Like it's not an exact science, but nobody else has figured out a better way to do it that I can think of, that I can imagine. So, everybody has to do it. everybody has to go down to the bottom and then try to fight their way back up. And so the Wizards are at the bottom. And so they have to, it won't just be this year's draft. It won't just be the 2025 draft. It probably won't just be the 2026 draft, but these next three drafts, they have to me, draft at least two superstar level players out of these next three drafts. And that's not easy because the hit rate is very low for superstars because there's not a lot of them. But that's what they have to do. Um, Philly, for all the credit that Philly gets for the process and all that, they missed on a lot of people, a lot of first round picks, a lot of high lottery picks. They drafted Ben Simmons. They drafted Markel Fultz. They drafted guys that did not live up to the hype of being the number one pick or being a high lottery pick. Nerlens Noel was a high pick of theirs. So they hit on Embiid, and that turned everything around. But they had to take 3 or 4 or 5 cracks at it before they hit on Embiid. And even then, there was no guarantee. So the Wizards are going to have some luck, and they're going to have to be in the high part of the lottery for the next several years.
So how is the public is taking the Wizards as a team? They still supporting them?
I mean, their attendance is not great, but it's not the worst in the league. Like people come to games. I did a game. I went to a game of theirs. I think it was on MLK Day. And they were playing the Pistons, and the Pistons at the time were just coming off of their 28-game losing streak. So I was literally the only reason I went to the game was to literally ask fans, "Why on earth are you here watching this game, watching these two teams play?" And people are. I like talking to fans because fans are fans. They're going to be fans no matter what. They all had different reasons, but I think they drew like 15,000, which again for a Wizards Pistons game is not all that bad. So the attendance hasn't been great, but it hasn't cratered. Like Kermit, when I first started covering the league and I was covering the Bullets, they would have like 4,000 people in a game at the Cap Center. And the Cap Center seated 19,000, so that looked awful. I mean, that was horrendous. So at least now people do come. Look, a lot of times they come to see the other team. I'm not even going to pretend like that's not true. But the attendance, it's been okay. Their TV ratings are awful, as they, nobody is going to watch them because there's nobody to watch on their team right now.
Mhm.
But people do still come out to watch the games because people like coming to sporting events. They like coming to NBA games. They still do.
Well, that's good. That's good. So tell me, we're gonna let you go in after a second, but predict now who's going to be in the finals. You think in the NBA finals this year?
Oh, Kermit, I think right now, like to me, I don't know how anybody beats Denver 4 times. And then the West is great. Don't get me wrong, the West is tough. And Denver's going to have a really tough series with Minnesota. Minnesota's long. They got a lot of depth. Anthony Edwards is a superstar player. Like, he ain't MJ yet. People need to slow their roll, but he is a superstar player. And they are well coached, and they go 9-10 deep, which is the only way you can beat Denver is to try to wear them down because they don't go past their starting 5 or 6 very often, 7 maybe. Um, but that starting 5 is the best in the league. Jokic is the best player in the league to me. So they're really tough to beat. They believe in themselves. They don't worry if they get down 10, 12 points. They just reel you back in. Uh, but assuming they get past Minnesota, which I think will be a tough 6 or 7 game series,
Hmm.
um, I think Denver in the West, and I think Boston in the East. Boston's been the best team in the league all season. I mean, they just have been. It's the
Yeah, I
num
think I think Denver plays well as a team, but you have to remember that Murray has an injury.
he
He's
does,
playing
yes,
he's playing
he
with a
does.
calf, and you have a calf injury, it's not going to get well. It's going to be
No, not in 4 days, right?
no,
So
not going to get well, and so he's going to be playing against some very good players, and I think Denver is a team that plays and they all know their positions. They
yeah,
all know their roles.
yep,
And very few people go outside their roles. And sometimes you'll see, somebody take a shot, say, well, I don't think it should take a shot. Throw it in there to the big fella,
yeah,
but let him
right,
do the
right.
passing with that. But when he is on, it's hard to beat them. Now, the
Yeah.
last game, he wasn't playing that well, even though his stats looked really good. He was
Hmm.
missing shots, having turnovers, but
Right.
it seems like he never gets upset. He just says they'll say, "Okay, just a steady motion. We're just going to keep working,"
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they came back and won because Lakers
Yeah.
played
Well,
well. The Lakers played
Lakers
well.
did play well. They did. The Lakers led most of that series. Like they were ahead in most of the games of that series. It's just at the end, Jokic just looks up at the clock. All right, what do we need to do? All right, I'll get him a layup. I'll get him an open three. I'll draw a double team and I'll throw a lob up to AG. Like they just figure out whatever they need to do to win that game that night. And like you said, everybody knows their role. Everybody's comfortable in their role. They all feed off of the way Jokic plays because they know he'll pass him the ball. And that just makes, to me, that's the secret sauce is that
Yes,
those guys play free because they know they're going to get the ball.
if they're open, he's going to give
Yeah.
them the ball.
He's going to get it to them, right? And so that's just different from a lot of teams, not all, but a lot of teams in the NBA where guys are like, if I don't touch it, it's not going to come back to me. Like
That's
I got,
true.
what I'm saying? I got to shoot it because I don't know when I'm going to touch it again. So, but that's never a problem with Jokic because if I cut back door, I'm getting a layup. If I come off of this stagger and I'm open, he's going to find me. I'm going to shoot the three. And that I think they play free because of that. They don't get caught up in the stuff that other teams get caught up in. And that's why he's so great because he can do that and score 40,
No,
and get 20 rebounds, like he just
it
whatever
is.
you need, he gets it
It's
for
good.
you.
It's good.
David, you've covered and been in attendance for some of the greatest moments in NBA history. Is there a
Yeah.
few that you could let us know, like that really jump out to you, like some of the highlights?
Wow. Wow. Okay. Yeah. I don't know. There've been a few for sure. I'm trying to think like championship series. Um, well, it wasn't a well played game, but game 7 in 2010 between the Celtics and the Lakers, just because it was the Celtics and the Lakers. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
like I had covered the Celtics Lakers 2 years before, but Boston dominated that series and won it easily. This was the first time that I had covered a game 7 between Boston and LA. And it was just great to be in that building just because of the history, the history of those two teams and what they both mean to the NBA. And so to me, that was again, it wasn't even a well played game, but I just remember being there going, wow, I'm really lucky to be here at this game. Um, you know, boy, there's so many Jordan games. I don't want to. There's a lot of Jordan games. One of my favorites was Mother's Day. I think it was 1992 or 1993. I can't remember. It was Mother's Day. I remember that. And they were playing the Knicks in the playoffs. And I tell people this to this day. John Starks played the. He could not have guarded Michael Jordan any better than he guarded him. Like he did
Yeah.
everything you're taught to do on how to try and guard. He got in his airspace. He mirrored his shot. He beat him to spots. He was physical with him. He did everything. Like he was on his wrist every time he shot the ball. And Jordan scored 54 points.
Yeah. Yeah, we were
Yeah.
talking. Yes, you know
We
what?
we've seen so many examples of that. I remember
Yeah.
when the Bulls swept the Bullets in the first round, and I think in game 3, Calbert Cheaney was basically inside his jersey the whole game,
Everything.
and he had
Did everything.
55 points.
Right. Everything. Couldn't do it. What? I can't guard him better than this. I can't do
Yeah,
anything.
you can't. You can't. We
You
were
know,
talking. We were talking earlier with Stu Lance and people like that. That was on the show. Was my teammate.
yeah.
Great players. Like I tell you what Rick Barry told me. He says, I might have a bad game. It's not because of you. You're guarding me. I
Right.
just had a
Right.
bad
Right.
game. Yeah, I just had a bad game.
Yeah.
And they believe that, because,
Yeah.
I try to tell people, I try to keep people from catching the ball because after they catch it, you're at their mercy. They're
Yeah.
that good.
Right.
And
Right.
nowadays, guys, let the guys catch the ball. How you
Right.
gonna let
Yeah.
like I was watching a game the other night and LeBron threw the ball away to somebody else, and the guy got off him and gave him another free pass to get the ball back again. That's
Right.
saying to myself, overplay him. Don't let him catch the ball again.
It's
He's gonna take
unbelievable.
I
Yeah.
know, but you know what it is? It's just a different mindset. But you
It's
know what?
different. Yeah.
It's just a different mindset. But you know what though? The athletes are better than when we played. The
Yeah.
superstars when I played would be superstars now. But
Yes.
in general, the guys are better athletes. They run up and down the court. Now, the teamwork, I don't know. Is it good? I don't know. But the players are better athletes and they have more talent. Now, do they
They
use
can,
that talent?
they're higher skilled. Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
it's how they're doing. So, first
Right,
of all,
but you know this, Kermit. And I say this all because people always bring up like, well, Jordan didn't shoot. He only shot like 30% on threes. And I always say, wait a minute, knowing what we know about Michael Jordan or Jerry West or whomever, if the three-pointer was important when they played, do you not think they would be great at it? Like they were
yes,
great at everything else?
yes, yes. And the thing is, like, Michael Jordan is, they're always going to compare him, but people have realized he was 6 for 6 in the championship
Yeah,
game.
that's right.
Not only was he a leader, see, that's the difference
Right.
between him and LeBron. LeBron
Yeah.
is a tremendous player, but Jordan was a leader. They
Yeah.
feared Jordan. They,
Yes.
they said, I better play hard or I better do this because Jordan's going to be mad at me. Not my coach so much.
Right. Right. That's right.
Jordan's going to be
That's right.
mad at me.
That's right.
And
That's
so,
right.
and his defense and the challenges that he had and the pressure he had is, to me, is incredible that he played at the level that he played at and was so successful. I mean, I tell people he wasn't from this earth. He came,
Right.
he's one of those, what they call star children or something like that. But I don't know what that stuff is, but it's
Yeah.
incredible. And he meant a lot because before I let you go, so I know you got to get to the game, but when Chicago and T.O. was a big Chicago fan, was on
Yeah.
WGN, was it
WGN, yeah.
WGN? I,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
I watched those games, but
Sure.
then I would watch another game and say, "Well, that's like junior high school
Yeah.
compared to watching Jordan's
It
game."
ruins it
Right.
for you.
Yes,
Right.
yes. So,
It's
I
like sitting
just
in the
miss
front
Kermit.
row.
I just miss the old days. I just miss. I mean, not because I think the game was better. It was different because the rules were different. That's okay.
Yeah.
But what I miss is I just thought there was a level of competitiveness that I don't see now. I
Like
think guys,
more rivalry.
yes, Chicago against the
yeah,
Knicks and
yeah, or
Detroit
against
against the.
Detroit and Detroit
Oh
against
yeah. Oh
Boston and Boston against LA, and those guys wanted to. They wanted to destroy each other. You know what I mean? Like they
Yeah.
wanted to dominate those other teams. Like they took it personally when they lost to those teams, and
Yeah.
part of that's because you didn't have free agency back then, so teams tended to stay together 5, 6,
yes.
7 years.
Yeah.
It would be different now because half your team would leave within 3 years, and you have to replace them. It wouldn't be the same. Um, but back then, the rivalries were just so heated, and the
You know.
dislike that they had for each other was real.
You know what you know though. You know what you know though. You're talking about 15 Hall of Famers probably, or 20 Hall of Famers in that with the Detroit and Boston and
Exactly.
LA and all those
Exactly.
teams like that. You had
Exactly.
guys that were legendary, and,
Yes.
they
Exactly.
did not want to lose. They did not
No,
lose.
and those guys were fierce competitors. Magic and Bird and Isaiah. They were not nice guys to their teammates. Like Jordan, same thing. They're not friendly. Like
Yeah,
they
yeah,
demanded excellence out of their team and their teammates,
yeah,
and
you're
and
right.
it
And
just
if they
made the
lost, wait, David. If they lost, they
yeah.
weren't hugging and kissing each other after the game.
No, no,
Oh my
no,
God, no.
no.
Oh,
We're not
we
going
have
out
a
afterwards. Like, we're not all
we
going out to eat dinner together. Like,
right. We have a mutual friend. He's about 10 years younger than me, so he's probably 35, 36, and he didn't see the Detroit, Chicago, and all that.
yeah,
And when I was talking about it, he was like, because I was saying that guys would get into it every game,
Oh,
and he's
yeah.
like, "Really? It was like that?" I'm like, "Yeah, it was
oh,
for real. It was not
everything.
like now."
They
Oh,
hated each other. I
oh,
saw I was in Chicago Stadium. Lambeer, 5 minutes into the game, turned around and knocked Scottie Pippen out with an elbow.
Yeah,
Knocked him out.
right.
What?
yes.
That's just what happened back then.
Yeah, but you know what? And they say Michael played in a soft time. It were guys weren't as
Yeah,
rough. Or I told
Oh
him it's 10
no,
times rougher back then. We're not even
absolutely.
going back to the Detroit team before that with
Right,
Bob Lanier, Norwood,
right, 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 right,
Trent,
right.
Transvan. I mean, they were
yeah.
thugs. Norwood, they were thugs,
Yeah,
and they were
yeah.
playing the Cold Bowl Arena where there were thugs sitting in the stands
Right,
ready to
right,
go.
right, right.
Oh
Right.
my God.
It
And
was
then
just different.
Chicago,
Yeah.
the
Those
Chicago
guys,
Sloan and Van Leer wanted to fight every play. No,
right?
no, I mean, yeah, I'm serious.
Yeah,
Every
yeah.
play.
Yeah.
There
And
was a
so
great story about Sloan and Van Leer that Johnny Ray Kerr told me. He said when so I guess Sloan was with the Baltimore Bullets then, right? And they were playing Chicago somewhere. I don't know where. I don't know if it was in Chicago or Baltimore. But he said he went in and Van Leer fouled him really hard going to the basket, and they both fell down. And of course, they got up swinging.
oh
And he
yeah.
said the fight lasted so long, like they went off the court, like there was like a double door that led to the jet. They went back
Oh
the
yeah.
whole way, and they still.
Yeah, that's I told you Van Leer and Calvin Murphy got in it. It looked like bumblebees fighting. I mean, they were just yeah, I'm serious. But you got fined $50, $100. Now the
Right,
guys you can get fined $1 million
Yeah.
because they get
right,
suspended. But I try to tell people Draymond Green, he's kind of tough, but he wouldn't have been that tough back in our days.
not back
They'd have
then.
put him
Right,
in the
that's right.
hospital. You
That's
know,
right.
yeah, they put him in the hospital. You had see,
Right.
I try to tell people real quick, are you in a rush to get out of there?
No, 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 no. Go
Okay.
ahead.
See, you
Yeah,
had Maurice Lucas, Lonnie
yeah.
Shelton, Paul
Right.
Silas. You just keep going down the list. You had oh like Truck Robinson. You had everybody had a tough guy.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean,
She
and
didn't
and
mess
you
with.
you didn't. Oh my God, no, you didn't mess with
Yeah.
them at all. And
Yeah.
so, but nowadays, very few guys that aggressive. They're making so much money, and they're probably looking, well, where am I going to go eat after dinner, or a real fancy
Right.
place.
Right.
But
Right.
yeah, but
They
now,
weren't. Yeah. Back in the day, it was. Yeah.
yeah,
And
Maurice
yeah. Go ahead.
Lucas was my teammate, and he would start off to elbow to people's face. You know,
Right.
he did that to Swin Nader. I said, "What you doing?" He said, and then you know what though? He did that to Donnie Ford. That was my teammate when I was at the Lakers, and that game was
Yeah.
over. Don,
Right.
they let him get away with it. I mean,
Right. Right.
Luke
Right.
was tough, but
I
then
just think. I just
go ahead.
think though in those days, to me, that's why I kind of again I revere the guys that played in those eras because I think big men helped save the NBA, right? Like, back going back to Russell and obviously back to Russell and Wilt, but Mikan was the first superstar. So I always feel like big men has saved this league when the league wasn't nearly as popular as it is now. And I hate that big men have been kind of legislated out of the game
Yes,
and, because it doesn't pay respect to the history of this league, which was you had to play inside out. You had to have a great big man, and everybody could play. Look at what Denver's doing.
yeah.
They're playing off of a great big man. Now he plays. He's not a low post back to the
No.
basket big man, but he plays big. You
Oh
know
yeah,
what I mean? He plays big. So
and
I mean,
he makes
you know,
everybody better.
and he makes everybody better,
Makes everybody
right?
better. But you're saying back then everybody had a center.
Yeah.
Everybody, you start up there in Buffalo, McAdoo, Cowens,
Right,
Unseld, Bellamy,
right.
Kareem,
Willis Reed.
Furman,
Yeah,
Elvin Hayes. I mean, just go on and on. Everybody had a good center that could play.
Yeah.
right, right.
Nowadays, it's like a four. It's a
Yeah,
turn and shoot, whatever. But
right.
and they were terrifying. We were talking with Stu Lance. You did not let a guy make a layup back then. You had to
Yeah,
foul him hard because
right,
if you didn't, the coach was going to take you out. You say,
right,
you got to foul him. You can't let him.
right.
You want to make him realize he's not going to go in there and make an easy layup.
That's
Nowadays, they
right.
go. But remember, you're talking about the Boston, LA, what they did to Kurt Rambis. Remember, he was to make a layup.
Right?
They,
McKay, just
they,
McHale
close
they,
like
closed on him.
Raquel clotheslined them.
yeah,
My God, they would have thrown him out the league for the rest
yeah,
of
right,
the
right,
year.
right. And to me, and that's why again the league is so stat driven now. But again, it's a totally different game now than it
Yeah.
was 30 years ago. So when a guy scored 25 points a game 30 years ago, he was held in high regard because it was really hard to score
Yeah.
25 points a game. Like you had to do a lot of work to get to 25
Yes.
points a game. You had to take
Remember
a
we
lot
had
of hits.
remember
You know?
we had Adrian Dantley on, and I put some TikToks up of the clips of him talking about. He said Bob Lanier almost took his leg off in his first game in the
Yeah.
NBA,
Yeah.
and some of the comments were like, "Well, that's not basketball, it's football or whatever." And I'm like, "Yeah," and he was still getting 30. You
Yes,
know?
exactly.
yes.
That's why
And
it makes now
yeah,
everybody gets I just wrote about this during All-Star weekend because there was such a proliferation of scoring before they changed the rules back and stopped calling all the fouls. But there was like 45 guys that had already scored 40 points in a game this
Yeah.
year, you know. And so I said, well, wait a minute. If everybody can score 40, then what's the value in scoring 40? You know
Right,
what I mean?
right.
Yeah. Like,
but you
and
did you
that,
notice though? You notice, David, when Abib scored 60, how many people got 60 right after that? Uh,
exactly.
because they said, "Oh, he
Carl
scored
Anthony
60.
Towns got it the
Let
same
me see,
night,
I can get
you know?
60 or whatever,
Yeah.
whatever it is."
Yeah,
But the thing is, though, like Stu Lance was saying earlier today, it was only 14 teams in the league when he came in, and about 16 when I came in, and only
right,
12 players on the team. So you
right.
had talent, you had deep talent on most teams. You could go
Yes,
7 or 8 deep. Nowadays,
right.
they have what 15, 16 guys on the team, and you have what 30 teams or 29, 30 teams,
30,
30
yeah.
teams.
30
30,
teams.
yeah.
So it's a different, but we want to watch superstars. We as
Sure.
fans want to watch superstars, and that's what the NBA is giving us in a sense.
Yeah,
Like you want to watch. Oh, okay, Minnesota's playing. Oh, I they got a good player.
right.
You know,
Well, what's happening? Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
and
Right.
so I'm looking forward to watching him and other people. So that's why I say that the NBA has grown and is just getting better and better and better
Yeah,
in its terms of the public's viewing. Because you're right,
right.
we used to come on at 11:30 at night in the
Yep. No
playoff
takeaway. Right. No
11
takeaway. Yeah.
CBS. Brent Musburg and Rick Barry or
Yeah.
Bill
Right.
Russell.
That's right.
I don't
That's right.
remember that it wasn't popular, but then Dr. J, he
Right.
came in, the ABA came in, and
Hmm.
I he changed everything. And then when Magic and Bird came in, that's when
Just
it took off.
it took off.
It just took
Absolutely.
off. It
And I
just took
don't believe me. I don't begrudge the young guys today anything. God bless them. Make all the money you can. You know, like if somebody's going to give you $250 million to play basketball, take it quickly and easily, and don't look back. Um, and the offense, to your point, like you said earlier, the talent level, the skill level is so much greater now. You know what Steph Curry has done to
oh,
basketball will never be. I don't know if it'll ever be fully appreciated. He completely changed how basketball's played at all levels,
yes, yes.
everywhere.
Yeah.
So he said it, high school, AAU, college, pro, men, women, everybody that plays basketball plays it differently now because of Steph Curry. Everybody.
Yeah,
And
but
that
you know what? Yeah, you know what you're saying though, and I try to tell people it took Steph 3 years to get enough credibility to
that's
take
right.
those shots. He just
That's right.
didn't start coming out of
Yeah.
college taking them
Right.
because
Right.
he made such a high percentage.
Right.
He got a green light. Now you
Yes.
got these
Yes.
young kids now coming out there, they don't have the green light. They're shooting. They're
No.
Right.
shooting,
No. I
Or
mean,
shooting.
like
highlight
Mark
a quick
Jackson
picture
was
from the
saying, he was saying there's a downside to that because everybody thinks they can shoot like Steph. Well, no, you can't.
No.
Mm-mm.
He's one of what? Like
Mhm.
he's the greatest shooter in the history of basketball.
Right.
This isn't close,
Did
Like
did did you remember when Mark Jackson had came out and said he thought that Clay and Steph were the best shooting backcourt, and this was when they were really young,
oh,
and
I
a lot of
remember
people
it
gave him
very well.
a lot of people gave him pushback, and I
Yes.
was just like, what is he talking about? I didn't know, and then
Mhm.
a year later, you see that obviously they're the best shooting backcourt ever.
I was a complete skeptic. I remember when they came to Washington for a game and he was the coach. So this would have been like 2013 or 14, and he said it. And I literally said to him, "That's BS. What you just said. That's nonsense. That's insane. What you just said. These are two kids. What are you talking about?" He said, "Just look at it. Look at the numbers." And so I did. I spent the next week looking at all of the great shooting backcourts that I could think of. You know, going back to Gail Goodrich and Jerry West. Like all the ones that I could think of that really, well, you had two guards that could really both shoot, and he was right.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah, he's right. And it's funny. We're going to get Clay on next week probably, but I used to babysit Clay because Michael Thompson,
Oh
his dad,
wow,
was my teammate, and all
yeah,
of his brothers. He was always so quiet, so well behaved. And I said to somebody who was arguing, I said, "No, Clay, I hope Clay keeps playing, but his personality, money is not important to Clay. It never
Yeah,
was.
yeah,
If you
right.
know him, he's just quiet and
Just
that's
wants to
Clay
play
is
with his
Clay.
dog, right?
And so they had to force him to go over and get that deal for the shoe, the millions of dollars for that shoe deal. He didn't
Right,
go. They had to force him, his wife and his mother had to force him, Julie had to force him get on a plane to go get it. But
right.
my thinking is I think he'll, even though he's gonna have to take a big cut in pay, I
Yeah,
think he should stay with Golden State because
I
they
hope
love him.
so. Yeah, I hope so
They
too.
love him, and so he would, his personality is he needs that kind of support of people that have
Yeah,
known him for
yeah.
success, and with having Steph, Steph there, he'll be more comfortable. Now, Draymond drives me crazy half the time, but Jesus Christ, you
It'll
know,
be hard to play with him. I would think it would be hard to play with him.
yeah. Oh, but you know what? That's why KD left.
Yeah,
Because of
yeah,
Draymond, and that's why
yeah.
Jordan Poole. And
Yeah.
I haven't even heard of Jordan Poole this year because
No, he did not have a great year in Washington. It was not
well,
good.
no, because he's there. You
Yeah,
know, he
well,
he was
he
in Golden
closes
State.
Yeah,
I know.
right, right. No, you're right. You're right. It's funny.
No.
I read Rex Chapman's book that he just put out. He had this great anecdote about when he was in Charlotte. He got a ride one time with Del Curry, and he said Steph was like 3, and he was in the back seat. And Rex goes, "Who would have thought that the 3-year-old kid been sitting in the back seat? All this girl was going to be the
Yes,
greatest player of all
yes. And you know what
time."
though too, and David, he's a total gentleman, really is.
Absolutely,
And Clay
absolutely.
is the same thing. They're both great guys. And so for those 4 championships that they won, and I think it wasn't for Draymond, they would have won maybe 5 or 6,
Well,
because he got thrown out of that series. They were up
right,
3-1,
right.
right? They were up 3 to
That's a
1.
wrap. The series is a wrap. Yes, yes.
Jesus
They were.
Christ.
Yes,
And
yes.
then
No, he
losing
cost
to
them.
KD, and that's because KD would have
Yeah,
stayed, but don't
cost them
embarrass
another
him.
one. Yeah, yeah,
'Cause
yeah.
KD is
No,
sensitive. Kevin Durant
right,
is very sensitive, and so, he said, "I don't need this." He said,
right.
"I don't need
No,
this."
you're right.
And,
You're right.
it's a shame. It's a shame. But you know what, though, David, I really thank you for coming on, and I'm gonna look for you on the television tonight for the game.
Yeah,
Where do you sit?
I'm not doing the game. I'm not like doing the game for TV. So I sit with the ink stain wretches now, Kermit. I'm in the press row,
Oh,
back on the
first row?
baseline. So yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, okay.
one
They
quick thing.
pan the baseline. You might see me. So
One quick thing. Over the years, I've seen you handle this so well when the video game nerds would give you such a hard time. But I mean, that must have been a really cool experience to be able to
that's right.
lend your voice to the 2K series, and then and they give you the pushback on it. These random fans. It's like I'm thinking Dave's probably like, yeah, I'm gonna go cry myself to sleep on this
On
pile of
this
cash
bed
that
of money.
they.
I promise you. I promise you. I enjoy. Roosevelt used to say, I welcome their sarcasm or whatever. Because I promise you, 2 children who are related to me are going through college because of NBA 2K money
Right,
that
yes.
I put
What
away over
school
the
what
years.
school are they gonna go to, or are they going?
Our oldest son is at William and Mary right now. He's a sophomore at William and Mary. The younger one, he hadn't decided. He's in high school. He's a junior in high school. So he's just trying to figure out if he can go somewhere. He plays baseball, loves to play, wants to play baseball somewhere. He doesn't care where he goes to college, as long as they have a baseball team that he can play on. That's what he wants to do. So
Well, hey, you know what? Well, good luck to your kids, and thank you for coming on. AU alumni, we're
there you
strong,
go.
brother, we're
Right?
strong.
Absolutely.
Hey, you
Absolutely.
take care.
Anytime for the
Thank
greatest
you.
Eagle of all time.
Right.
Anytime, Kermit.
Yeah,
Take care.
Mr. 20 and 20.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Very nice to
Take
meet
care.
you.